Coming up on Network Africa, ECOWAS gives Mali's military 1 week to appoint a new civilian leader. South Africa's opposition economic freedom fighters calls for more protests to demand that beauty company Clicks closes all outlets for 5 days over a racist advert. Plus, Egypt tops 100,000 in confirmed COVID-19 cases. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. The military junta that ousted Mali's president has been given until the 15th of September to appoint a new civilian leader to lead the transition. Leaders from the West African bloc, ECOWAS, said the proposed civilian president and prime minister would lead the country to a fresh election. The junta is yet to respond to the announcement made on Monday during a summit attended by 8 heads of state in Niamey, the capital of Niger. ECOWAS wants the transition to be done within a year, but the junta has in the past said it prefers a reasonable time and suggested at least 2 years. Well, let's discuss more on this situation in Mali. Joining us now in the studio is Mr. Chukwemeka Eze, lecturer and faculty of law at the Nasarawa State University. Thank you so much, Mr. Eze, for speaking to us.
Thank you, Layo.
Let me begin by asking you, what are your thoughts on this 1 week deadline given to the junta in Mali? Do you think it's realistic?
I don't think it's realistic. 1 week is too short, especially for a military junta. Although it has started negotiations with stakeholders in Mali, but definitely, I don't think it will hit to the 1 week. But it seems to me that they will ask for extension because something must give, but 1 week is too short.
Yeah, and they've not responded actually, but you're thinking that they might ask for an extension. How long?
I wouldn't be predictive, but they've considered a lot of things. They've allowed Ibrahim Bouba Keita to leave the country for medical treatment for 3 months. So if they could consider to ECOWAS, they can also consider that thing. So I wouldn't know how long it will take, but the 1 week is good. They've been given 1 week. The implication is that their dilly-dallying will not be for long. They know their time is running out. And I expect that if I should sound Nostradamus, 3 weeks, 1 month, they should be able to. But whether they will appoint both the president and prime minister as civilians, I doubt. Because what will be their take? How will they handle the levers of power? Will they completely stay outside it? And if they do so, then it might be the first time a military junta will be allowing that kind of thing in Mali. Remembering Amadou Toumani, when he took over power, he was in power for about a year, and he did not appoint a civilian president and a civilian prime minister. So all over the years in Mali, nobody has done it, but it seems ECOWAS wants to ensure that this protocol on democracy and good governance are given by this time around.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. But what should characterize these new leaders that, ECOWAS is asking for? What sort of leader do you think Mali needs now?
I think ECOWAS is not pointing at a particular person, but I think the ECOWAS is looking at the admixture you have in Sudan.
Okay.
Yes, where part of the leadership, I think it's a 50-50 thing, although being headed by the head of the military junta in Sudan. But at least the civilians were accommodated, and you have a timeline. But this one, foisting both the president and prime minister, I think it's a negotiating bit. At the end of the day, the army may have one, while the civilians may have one. They started negotiation, and there is no way they would have risked their lives for the coup and take a total backseat, because the implication is that the president might be used to put them on trial. So I don't think they are so stupid. But I know that Alassane Ouattara, that is going for a third term in Côte d'Ivoire, and the leader of Guinea going for a third term, the two are putting a lot of pressures on ECOWAS to ensure that something happens. Because if this is allowed to fester, the military in those two countries might overthrow the civilian government. So the thing is taking a direction. ECOWAS will not budge beyond the theoretical protocol on democracy and good governance.
Good governance. Now, let's not forget there was a reason why the opposition, wanted Ibrahim Keita out, and why the military also stepped in. So what would you say is the realistic path to peace for Mali as it stands now?
Mali is a complex situation, but both France and ECOWAS and the European Union, including the United Nations, nobody wants to be negotiating with the military. Recently, you can see between 18th August when the coup occurred and today, a lot of ambushes have taken place in Kidal and other parts of northern Mali. And some of the support, logistics and otherwise, being given to the peacekeeping force in Mali, northern Mali. France has 5,000 soldiers. ECOWAS, they have their own people. So with this, definitely, it will require channeling funds. And they want to be sure people they can be talking to and get things done. So the coupists also know that unless they get this thing done, that the international community may not give them enough support. And if they are not giving enough support, the jihadists in Mauritania and the Sahel, their boundary with Mauritania and other parts of the Sahel, may overrun Bamako, which is in southern Mali. So it's a very difficult situation, but there is negotiations and diplomatic apparatus will definitely, at the end of the day, ensure that Mali has a headway. But this has to be married with the local situation, because Malians, they were fed up with Ibrahim Keita, and having been booted out, I think they can plan for the next leader, but it's quite unfortunate that we found ourselves in this mess again. Cool.
Yeah, we'll just hope for the best for Mali, and we'll see how all things turn out eventually. Mr. Chukwuemeka is a lecturer of Faculty of Law, Nasarawa State University. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Moving on to other stories, South Africa's opposition figure, Julius Malema, has called for more protests to demand that beauty company Clicks closes all outlets for 5 days over a racist advert. Protests on Monday, led by the Economic Freedom Fighters Party leader, led to the closure of more than 400 outlets of the company. Several outlets were vandalized as protesters called for their closure. Clicks had published the hair adverts on its website that described African hair as dry and damaged, while white hair was described as fine, flat, and normal. The advert was pulled out, and the company apologized and said it had suspended those who were involved. However, EFF called for the names of those behind the advert to be published and for them to be sacked from their jobs. But the government has urged protesters not to damage property. The Nelson Mandela Foundation has hit back at remarks attributed to U.S. President Donald Trump about anti-apartheid icon Nelson Mandela. The remarks are from a new book by Mr. Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, which comes out on Tuesday. In the book, Mr. Cohen claims Mr. Trump made racist comments about Nelson Mandela, allegedly saying the late South African president was no leader. But the White House says the lawyer is lying. However, the Nelson Mandela Foundation has said it did not believe that leaders who conduct themselves in the way Mr. Trump does are in a position to offer authoritative commentary on the life and work of Madiba. Similarly, the governing ANC, African National Congress, has condemned Donald Trump, calling him a divisive, misogynistic and disrespectful person ever to occupy the office of the president. We begin our coronavirus coverage in Egypt, where the Health Ministry has confirmed more than 100,000 COVID-19 infections and reported 5,541 deaths from the virus. The North African country of more than 100 million people had imposed a nighttime curfew from March to June to curb the spread of the illness, but since eased restrictions, daily life has since returned in the largest Arab country, with cafes, restaurants and tourist sites again open to the public. Prayers in mosques and churches have also resumed, with social distancing and mask wearing enforced. The new school year is also set to begin in October with a mix of classroom and online teaching. Well, health authorities in South Sudan have expressed concern at the rise of COVID-19 cases in neighboring Ethiopia. This is after Ethiopia reported its highest rate of infection last week since it confirmed its first cases in March, according to the World Health Organization. Now, more than 900 people have died and close to 60,000 cases have been recorded in the last 7 months. Ethiopian Airlines has daily flights between Addis Ababa and South Sudan's capital Juba, which is why the health authorities are worried. All local communities in Yambio, Western Equatoria of South Sudan, have received some 500 solar-powered radios distributed by the United Nations mission in South Sudan. This handover is in support of a remote learning initiative developed by the Ministry of General Education, South Sudan, together with UNICEF, to enhance the learning of children during this pandemic.
The word is the previous day.
Children here in Yambio, Western Equatoria, South Sudan, can now attend school lessons and listen to awareness-raising messages regarding preventative measures to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, broadcast live on Radio Miraya, the radio station operated by the UN mission in South Sudan. This follows the closure of schools for almost 4 months.
I need the government and partners to help us. And our girls are taking pregnant because there is no school. We have taken now 4 months without education and we stay at home. And we are giving thanks to UNIMIS and Radio Miraya.
Community leaders expressed their appreciation for the radios and for the efforts made by UNMIS to keep everyone abreast of important health-related information during the pandemic.
The issue of coronavirus which has come and all the schools were closed down, so there was no way of our children to go to the school. These radios are going to help them in this time which schools are not working. So we are very happy and we are giving much thanks to UNIMIS for providing us the radio which will help our children and also us, because we will get information about coronavirus and even the prevention for coronavirus.
According to Moses Gabari, Child Protection Assistant at UNMIS, these radios will help keep learning ongoing for many children here and also sensitize them on the coronavirus.
These radios purposely issued out so that children will have access to learning between 10 to 11 a.m. and 2 to 3 a.m. weekly. Number two, one of the purposes is to support the state task force on COVID-19 in order to spread prevention messages about coronavirus.
These school lessons are broadcast twice a day on Radio Miraya every week from Monday to Friday. The UN radio station has played a key role in supporting the national-led COVID-19 response across South Sudan.
Still ahead on Network Africa. Authorities in Sudan warn that floodwater threatens to engulf important archaeological sites in the capital, Khartoum. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. The Nigerian Air Force has commenced airdropping of food and relief items to internally displaced persons in hard-to-reach locations in Borno State. A total of 26,067 households consisting of 156,402 individuals are to benefit from the donation of assorted food items. This is according to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Farouk.
The cargo plane touches down at the Air Force Base in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. Food and non-food items transferred into waiting trucks for onward dispatch to the warehouse of the National Emergency Management Agency, from where they will later be distributed to victims of insurgency. The Northeast has been the haven of insurgency for close to a decade. Recently, aid workers became soft targets for abduction while the humanitarian space continued to shrink. The affected population in need of assistance is trapped in hard-to-reach locations. With access to communities almost impossible due to floods and insecurity, the need for unconventional support for internally displaced persons brought the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs to Maiduguri.
Now we're in the rainy season, as well as some locations that have been identified where we have gaps. So we've come in with food intervention to these outlined locations, whereby the federal team, the state team, as well as the partners, humanitarian actors, to identify these places and take this intervention to them.
The Nigerian Air Force says it has the capacity to airdrop relief items into identified locations in the Northeast. It supports this claim with a simulation exercise. The state government appreciates the new measure adopted and says this will help the intention to return IDPs to their homes.
We have over 1.2 million IDPs, living in the host communities too. The government is trying, and the federal government has tried to build some houses for people in their community. So we're praying that all our IDPs, both those who are in camps and those who are living in the host community, inshallah, will go back to their hometowns very soon.
After all said and done, the food items are handed over to the state government while engagement continues with relevant stakeholders.
High levels of annual floodwater on the Nile River has threatened to engulf important archaeological sites north of Sudan's capital, Khartoum. The World Heritage have not previously been affected by flooding, according to archaeologists based in the country. But now the authorities are working to pump water out and protect the pyramids built by the ancient Meroe civilization with sandbag walls. Sudan has seen torrential rains in recent weeks, with the government declaring a state of emergency, and nearly 100 people have lost their lives. On Monday, floodwaters entered part of the riverbank residence of the Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok to the north of Khartoum. However, the premier and his family did not need to be evacuated. In the wake of a peace deal and formation of a new government, the United Nations peacekeeping mission in South Sudan has begun withdrawing its troops from the protection of civilian sites across the country and handing over its security to the national police. When civil war erupted across South Sudan in 2013, thousands of families fled to United Nations bases in fear for their lives. The UN peacekeeping mission in the country, UNMISS, opened its gates and set up protection of civilian sites to provide them sanctuary. 7 years later, the security situation is much improved, and residents of these sites move freely between the camp and the town to attend school or university, shop at a market, and to work.
POC sites were set up to protect people in imminent physical danger. They did so for many ethnicities and for many years. But today, many people are staying there so they can access services. That has occurred because we assess that any threats that may have existed in the past are no longer in existence today. Importantly, withdrawing from these sites means that those troops who were occupied at the POCs can be redeployed to hotspots where people's lives are in immediate danger, like in Jonglei. Nobody will be pushed out or asked to leave when UNMISS withdraws, and humanitarian services will continue. I want to make and emphasise those points. It's just that the sites will no longer be under our jurisdiction, but will be, as I said, IDP sites like so many other IDP sites across the country. And it'll be the government's responsibility to find other land for these people to settle or to help them return to their homes or assist them or assist those whose houses are occupied by others.
Mogadishu is a city of ruined glory. Crenellated towers crumble by the sea and sand whirls against the pock-marked archways of the roofless old cathedral. But one young man, Omar Degan, returning to his family's homeland, walks through the streets and dreams of their future.
30-year-old Italian-Somali architect Omar Degan was born in Italy to Somali parents who left just before the civil war broke out in 1991. He studied architecture in Italy and Hong Kong before returning to Mogadishu in 2017, part of an influx of young diaspora Somalis returning to rebuild their country. Degan was drawn to the city of ruined glory. He immediately set to work founding Do Architecture, a company that specializes in post-conflict reconstruction.
In the future, we may be able to reach that, is to create a walkable space all around the area and give the possibility to the audience not only to experience these cultural buildings, but also the whole experience of walking around.
Al-Shabaab still mounts attacks in the city. Degan wants the government to set aside some of the city's rapidly vanishing land for public spaces where families can gather in the evening.
Public spaces, especially in a post-conflict reconstruction context, it means a lot because it really helps the people to take ownership of the spaces that they have. So a public space, it reduces the inequality, it makes the people equal, the better if they are no matter the gender, age, and sex. So at the end of the day, having a public space will help the reconciliation and the peace that the Somalia need and is looking for.
Degan is concentrating on smaller projects, some of which he does pro bono. He's designed a school with gardens in central Somalia and a public library in the town of Las Anod.
When we designed this space, the main idea was to maintain the cultural identity and giving a touch of heritage and at the same time give the contemporary of the design. So as we can see here, we use the traditional mawis, which is the skirt of, if we want to, the Somali man.
Before Somalia's civil war, Mogadishu was dotted with parks and libraries. Today, this sprawling city of 2.6 million people has no public spaces, only the beach.
And that's where we end Network Africa today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.